Y amigos de Data Evolution, nos encontramos aquí con Bruce Lawler. Él es un inversionista y se encuentra actualmente trabajando con el MIT en proyectos de investigación, de desarrollo, trabajando en muchos programas. And thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us
Happy
today.
to be here.
Thanks. Can you explain a little bit more about what are you doing with the MIT?
Yes, I work with MIT, and we focus on applications of AI in operations. So all of our research is how do we apply all of the great things that are developed here at MIT, like from the Computer Science and AI Lab, how do we then apply it into industry?
Entonces, esto es una gran oportunidad de conocer cómo se aplica la tecnología de inteligencia artificial aquí en el MIT con Bruce, que conoce bastante sobre este tema. You used to work for Sloan Management School, right?
Yes, yes.
So the experience that you have from the administration and the management school, what you can tell us about the 6 dimensions of leadership?
Sure.
Queremos conocer más acerca del liderazgo que él conoce muy bien para poder aplicar la inteligencia artificial en las empresas.
I've been a software entrepreneur and an executive most of my career, so I've lived a lot of this experience. And the particular research I'm going to talk about today is work that we've done in collaboration with McKinsey, and we've done it by studying over the past, since 2021, doing annualized studies of industry segments. So from 100 to 200 different companies, we gather data from them, and then we interview specific executives in those companies to learn what they do. And so one of the things that we've seen over the past 4 years is that leaders not only were ahead, they've actually accelerated. They're moving farther ahead. And the one way we measure that is what we call key performance indicator performance. So
KPIs.
KPIs. So what kind of gains do they get versus other people in the study? And then how has that changed? So in 2021, they were getting 3 times better performance than the bottom 2 quartiles. The top quartile was 3 times better. It's now 4 times better. And we see that accelerating. So that's one of the big changes. One of the other large changes we've seen is that the ownership has moved from, say, a vice president level or director level typically to the CEO and the board level. So the ownership has moved up, and that's made a huge difference in terms of culture and a willingness to accept more risk. What we've also seen is that deployments are reaching greater scale because the barriers to entry have decreased. So there's more vendors, there's better tools to do pipeline, and there's frankly use cases that people can see and learn from and copy from. And so not only are those solutions exist, but there's partners now that you can get to help you with a solution that have already identified the problem, solved it, and then solved it at scale. So in many different ways, so that your particular variation has probably been addressed. Things that have been constant year over year is governance. So you need a high-level governance plan. And that can be kind of a steering committee that just oversees it. And the most important thing is data. You need to collect the data that matters because machines learn from data. So you must have that data, and it has to be clean and it has to be organized.
Es algo básico y fundamental para la inteligencia artificial tener la información adecuada para poder procesar la información. Las máquinas dependen de datos, ¿no? Las máquinas dependen de la información que trabajan. What do you think we need to understand how to collaborate better in the workforce environment?
So what we see, the big problem we see is there's a skills gap. We don't have people with the skills that we need, and we don't have enough people. And so as we always look at manufacturing or operational problems, we focus on the human. How do we make them better? So specifically, we look at how can we augment what they do, giving them some kind of superpower in terms of things that they can see that they couldn't see, or data that they have access to that they wouldn't have access to. We accelerate so they can make decisions faster. And then the last thing is to automate the dull, the tiresome, the trivial, the tedious tasks. So it's really augment, accelerate, and automate are the three big things that we look for in workforce enhancement. And the goal on the first two is to create superhumans, so we can augment your visibility and accelerate what you do, so we make superhumans. And then when we automate the trivial and tiresome task, we make super jobs. So the goal is to make people's jobs more fulfilling by removing that 30-40% of every job that no one really wants to do, but they have to do, using AI to do that. So we're very much about task level automation. We're not about replacing people.
Which is some of the main questions from our people, that if they're going to be replaced. And in order to have superhumans, we need to be human-centric, correct?
Right.
So how to become a human-centric company? The definition of workforce enhancement, we need to understand what do we need with the workforce, and then what is the main problem that we have.
So when we look at workforce enhancement, I mean, the very first thing is respect for people. So you need to respect the individual and what they know, and don't just assume that AI is going to solve it. And so when we address problems, we look at looking at their process map that humans are doing. How do we first simplify it? How do we standardize it? And then we think about how we might automate it. So start with the human, simplify the process, standardize, then automate. And in order to hit your corporate objectives, we always wanted to start with the desired business outcomes. So is it going to increase revenue, ideally, or is it going to help us improve flexibility or responsiveness? Is it going to improve quality of the customer experience or quality of the product? And then lastly, we think about cost. So typically, senior executives are more interested in enhancing revenue or enhancing speed to market than they are about reducing costs. So we want to focus on those. And then which of the key performance indicators that I talked about relate to those desired business outcomes. Another thing that we've done in our study is identified which use cases are the most popular. And the reason for that is A, you're most likely to succeed, and B, there's lots of case studies and work that's already been done. Then after you have the use case, do you have the data that's relevant to the problem, that has the information? And then all of that has to result in a workforce transformation of some sort. So it really does sit on top of the people that are going to still run the process, even though it maybe runs faster or it runs a little better, right? Or it's automated.
How do you think we have to address these issues in the market?
Oh, you're talking about the data issues?
The data issues.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people think of data as a monolith, and that you put data in a bucket, and if you just hand that bucket of data to a large language model, magic will happen.
And the data science use it.
Takes a lot more work than that. And so, what I'm talking about here is at the very base level, obviously you need to record and gather the information, and sometimes you have that in a system of record already. Sometimes you need to gather it. Then you need to get it to a place where you can store it. So it's created, then it needs to be stored, and then it needs to be transformed into something useful. And usually you need to do some kind of analytics to understand what the data is about. I mean, lots of people have worked with spreadsheets just to do a simple graph to understand, is the data clean? What is in it? For machine learning, then you need to do some more analysis and typically what's called labeling. So, things that are bad or good, label them, or classify them as, what kind of thing that they are. So that's a labeling step for what's called supervised learning. then you need to try different techniques. There's literally hundreds of different AI and machine learning techniques. Most people think there's like one, there isn't, and they don't all work as well. And so a lot of the thesis work we do is try 3 or 4 different things and see which one works best. Then once you've done that, you really need to optimize on that one model and finish your training, and then look at the implementation issues. But just starting with data at the bottom, all those steps you have to complete just to do a machine learning project.
What you mean is that Gen AI is not the only option, correct?
There are multiple types of Gen AI, and there was AI before
Gen AI.
Before Gen AI. And so if you're just trying to do a regression, like to find a value, to do a forecast, do a prediction, or if you're just trying to classify things or to recommend things, you don't need Gen AI. So there's still good old-fashioned AI has lots of use cases, and it's more deterministic in many cases. You understand the output a little better than something like generative AI, which is designed to generate something new. And you typically need to somehow constrain it. If it's a case where you don't care that it can be an image, and there could be 1,000 different images that work, or 1,000 different bits of text that are written that could work, then it works very well. But most cases, there's only one right answer, or a very small set of right answers. And those are harder for Gen AI to do today, but we're working on putting those guardrails and constraints in.
Do you think a machine learning is our option available?
So machine learning and Gen AI are all part of a larger AI thing,
umbrella.
and machine learning is truly learning from data. So I talked about that hierarchy of needs, where you do develop a set of data, or have a set of data that you can learn from, and then recreate something that's essentially in that data set, which could be done generatively or could be done more classically. But the good news is, people talk about training these large language models. The inference cost, the cost to execute to get an answer, is easily 1,000th or less the cost to train. You can see that in the pricing. The pricing isn't a 1,000 difference, but the compute is certainly that much less. So that's the thing most people don't realize, is they hear all of this about training, but after the model's trained, to ask it to do something is far less compute intensive.
Awesome, thank you very much. One last question for leaders. What do you recommend for the C-levels, for the CEOs, CFOs, when they're trying to implement artificial intelligence today? What is your recommendation? To start from where, then go to?
Sure, it depends really on the size of the company, but we always recommend pick a strategic opportunity for your company, something that, if you can do it, will change the company. That's the ideal thing, because then you'll take the risk. And so maybe it's as simple as quoting faster or responding to your customers faster. So choose something like that. Then look at what other people have done, that there's some similar use case, so you're not inventing something totally new, and that it is possible. And then make sure you have the data to do it. And presumably, because you've chosen something that will differentiate you in the industry, it's very easy to make the business case work out. The business case always has to work out.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you just for your time. Espero que sea de mucha ayuda, y seguimos aquí en el MIT aprendiendo de los mejores. Thank you.
Thank you.